Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We're going to get started in just a moment. We do have folks joining us from across the country today, so we're just going to hang on for about 30 seconds just to make sure that everyone has a chance to join us before we get started. And I can see we've got lots and lots of people joining in already, so it's great. Excellent. So I think we will go ahead and just get started with some introductory stuff. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. My name is Marina Dawson. I'm the Marketing and Community Coordinator with CharityVillage, and I want to thank you for joining us today for what's our very first webinar of 2018. We do have a few housekeeping items to run through just before we get started with the presentation. First, in order to have the best audio experience for everyone, we do have all of you on mute. And what that does is it minimizes the amount of background noise that you'll hear on today's webinar. But it does mean that while you'll be able to hear us speaking, we're not going to be able to hear you. We will, however, be taking questions throughout the session. So if you have a comment or a question at any time, do type it into the question box at the bottom of your GoTo control panel. You'll find that located on the right of your screen. And we'll do our best to either answer your question right there in the question box or during today's presentation. You can also email your questions to webinars@charityvillage.com, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible during the Q&A at the end of today's webinar. If you experience any technical issues today that impact your ability to see or hear the presentation, do drop us a note in the question box or by email, and we'll also keep you updated if we notice anything on our end that might affect your experience. We don't anticipate any technical problems, but as you know, sometimes the unexpected does happen. So if we do encounter any difficulties, just please stay put on the session as we get them resolved, and then we'll continue as quickly as possible. We are recording today's webinar, so if for any reason you get called away during the session or you get disconnected, you are still going to be able to view the entire presentation afterwards. Please don't worry about taking frantic notes. You'll get the full recording by email tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to review all of the information at your convenience. We are also live tweeting today's webinar from @CharityVillage and @TalentEgg, I believe, will be joining us on Twitter using the hashtag #CVWebinar. So feel free to join in there with your comments, questions, and observations. And today we're very pleased to have Mary Barrell, President of our sister company TalentEgg and General Counsel and VP of CharityVillage, presenting for us. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mary to get started. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you very much, Marina. I'm delighted to be here. And, just to give you a little bit of my background, as you know, I've been involved with CharityVillage for a few years, and in fact, have a background in television production. And I'm very proud to have produced CharityVillage's video series, Unsung Heroes, celebrating some of Canada's amazing volunteers and charities who've given so much back to the community. But today, I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to talk about TalentEgg and to introduce ourselves to the CharityVillage community of employers. As you just heard, TalentEgg and CharityVillage are sister organizations, and of course, we each serve our own community with commitment to excellence as much as possible. But in TalentEgg's case, we help Canadian employers connect with top young talent. We're thrilled to let you know that very soon you'll have an opportunity to post your jobs on both CharityVillage and TalentEgg to access our talent pool of young, ambitious candidates. But right now, I'm pleased to bring you some insights of what Gen Z and Gen Y candidates are looking for from their careers and their employers to help you integrate that kind of data into your recruitment strategy. We're also happy to give you an overview of the kinds of services we offer that can assist you in connecting with Canada's top young talent and to best present your employer value proposition to students and recent graduates to build your talent pipeline. Next slide, please. So what is TalentEgg and what do we do? Well, one of the biggest challenges anyone faces in their life is getting his or her first job and launching a career. It's an exciting but difficult and intimidating threshold in life. And one of the biggest challenges for employers is to attract and retain top young talent to support the organization's work and future growth by tapping into the demographic that will become 75% of the workforce in 15 years. TalentEgg provides a solution for both, matching up top students and recent grads to the best employers. TalentEgg is Canada's most popular job board and online career resource, connecting employers to top Millennial and Gen Z students and recent graduates. Next slide, please. Well, we have a wide variety of users through in-depth Gen Y and Gen Z optimized employer profiles, meaningful job opportunities, and original engaging content and targeted email blasts and social media posts. TalentEgg helps students and recent graduates gain skills and practical knowledge to navigate the school to work transition with free resources. Our users are highly targeted demographic. It's used by 18 to 34-year-old student, recent grads, career-oriented, and young professionals from across Canada who engage with our content and our featured employer brands throughout the year. On the other side of the coin, TalentEgg helps employers broadcast their unique recruitment message, position their brand, and market their internships, co-op programs, and entry-level job opportunities to the TalentEgg student community. We are the reverse of a sort of shotgun approach to job recruitment, where we provide you numbers. What we are laser focused on is really trying to get you the most targeted results for your campus recruitment efforts. So we focus very precisely on the desired demographic, and that allows our employers to attract, target, and recruit top talent that are the right fit for the job. Next slide, please. This year is TalentEgg's 10th anniversary, and although we've changed to adapt to the changing labor force and recruitment trends, we've always stayed faithful to our core mandate to build a bridge between employers and young candidates looking for meaningful careers. Next slide. At TalentEgg, we've done an extensive amount of research and surveying of our student networks to learn all we can about Gen Z, how their learning patterns are going to affect our employer partners, and in what ways we can adjust our services to provide the most valuable and helpful resources to this generation. And I'm here to share these insights with you, as well as provide some actionable tips that will aid, we hope, in these changing times of recruitment. So let's start with the basics. Who is Gen Z and what's so unique about them? This year, we're ushering members of Gen Z into the workplace for the first time. And while you may think the way they respond to your recruitment efforts isn't all that different than millennials, trust me, it is. Next slide. And again, the next slide, please. Gen Z is classified as those who were born in the mid-90s to early 2000s. They grew up with wireless technology, and they don't remember the VHS or a world without wireless internet and smartphones. Gen Z grew up at a time where they've been served media nonstop from all angles and on all platforms. And because of this, they have an average attention span that's been measured to be 8 seconds, which is 2 seconds shorter than what was measured for millennials. But in any case, they're not lazy, but they can get bored easily. This grew up with access to on-demand content at their fingertips, so they're experts at working on multiple tasks quickly. And one of those things, I'll add, is socializing. And by that I mean on social media platforms. Whether on social media, on their phones, or online, this generation is connected for an average of 7.6 hours a day. Capturing their attention, getting through the noise, and engaging them is the biggest challenge for recruiters today. Next slide. But they're definitely making their mark. By 2020, Gen Z will make up about 25% of the workforce globally. They're the students that are currently enrolled in college and university, and they're the ones that will be applying to your internships, co-op programs this year and in coming years. Millennials are the better known demographic, but really are already growing up. In fact, many millennials are already in management roles, and so are becoming less of a key focus group for campus recruiters. So it's important that we as employers shift our focus to this new demographic of Gen Z that differs considerably from their millennial predecessors. Next slide, please. So by the time a Gen Z applies to your entry-level jobs, they will likely have already been planning their careers for some time. 100% of our survey respondents that included post-secondary as well as high school students said they were thinking of their career, and 55% had already absolutely decided on a career path. Whether they end up sticking to that or not, they're very firm about focusing on their careers. Next slide, please. One of the other major differences between Gen Y and Gen Z is what motivates them. While with the previous generation, we found, and we all read stories about it in the news, that the parental push was often what was behind a student's career motivation, the so-called helicopter parent, our survey revealed that amongst the parents, teachers, friends, and counselors, the main driver behind 48% of Gen Z career success they perceive as being themselves. Members of Gen Z are career focused and ready to hit the ground running at your organization. Our research has shown that 32% of Gen Z surveyed states that their greatest aspiration is to be in their dream job 10 years from now. Based on the experiences we've had with students through various TalentEgg initiatives and in our research, I can tell you this for certain, Gen Z wants to feel valued and taken seriously. They are very focused on their careers. And that's terrifically good for employers. But it also means the employer's value proposition will be under closer scrutiny of these candidates. So attention really has to be on the recruitment strategy and what it takes to connect with them. So despite concerns about student debt, 41% are more interested in growth opportunities and career development than in a high salary when looking for their first jobs. This is great news for smaller organizations and employers in the charitable and not-for-profit sector. This is a generation that focused on building the future, and they understand that growing and advancing professionally starts with internships and other learning experiences. In contrast to the classic millennial characteristic, members of Gen Z are more likely to see professional development as a long-term process with a series of stepping stones towards future successes. From what we can tell, this mindset makes this generation less likely to job hop, something that millennials were, whether fairly or unfairly, notorious for. Next slide, please. In one of our polls this year, we found that 33% of students plan to stay in a job for 1 to 3 years, but a close 29% say they plan to stay with an employer for 4 to 6 years. But as you can see, this is a far cry from millennials, whose average time at an employer or job was 18 months. Now, that doesn't mean that members of Gen Z won't leave if they feel they aren't making an impact or they get bored. A great way to encourage retention is to provide a varied experience for your young employee. You can keep them learning and developing professionally by implementing rotational programs or a bit of rotation through duties or roles within your recruitment initiatives. They're attractive to Gen Z because they provide them with opportunities to test out a variety of different roles while still contributing to the overall organization. Rotational internship programs also help you to identify top candidates. So while participants explore different roles and responsibility with your organization, your team is able to assess their skills and capabilities before extending any formal offer for a permanent position. Essentially, interviewing once and hiring twice, making your recruitment more efficient and building a talent pipeline with less financial risk. Also, since there's a government funding to support summer jobs and internships and co-ops, this is a great strategy for smaller businesses or nonprofits with tighter budgets. Next slide, please. Gen Z grew up during the global recession, and many had to watch their parents, typically of Gen X, who themselves grew up in a recession, struggle with finances or job loss. This has made job security much more appealing to Gen Z than to millennials. They're more realistic about salary expectations. They're prepared to work and expect to pay their dues to succeed. 72% already work part-time, and 54% said the most important thing to them is to gain experience, while nearly 24% said seeing a future career path within an organization along with mentorship opportunities was most important to them. And as I said, job security is a big attraction to this cohort. So highlighting these parts of your culture and the employee experience is a crucial message to these young candidates. Next slide, please. In our survey, students reported that second to negative culture in the workplace, the inability to make an impact within an organization was enough to make them turn down a job offer. As a generation that tends to thrive in flatter hierarchical structures and more collaborative environments, Being able to contribute to something bigger than themselves while growing in their careers is the ideal professional situation for a Gen Z candidate. In addition to making an impact on society, your Gen Z hires want to make their mark on your organization. Knowing that their work directly impacts the organization is something this generation finds very rewarding. In some ways, these tendencies favor smaller, leaner organizations, which by necessity typically require employees to wear many hats and offer more responsible roles earlier in the career path. So this is an advantage to many nonprofit organizations and charities with smaller staffing and resources. Gen Z will embrace the opportunities to take the lead on projects and collaborate well with a team. Next slide, please. In our recent student survey, over 80% of Gen Z students reported that they volunteer at least sometimes. So this is really a generation of volunteers. And because of this increase in volunteer experience prior to entering the workforce, often encouraged in their curriculum at middle school and high school, this generation will be applying to your internships and entry-level roles equipped with more practical skills than ever before. This is also a great way for employers in the nonprofit sector to engage with young candidates early. Again, interviewing once but hiring twice. Nonprofit employers can use their volunteer roles to engage and build relationships with young talent and have them return for internships or entry-level positions later. To me, this is a huge percentage, was a bit surprising, and it confirms that this group is more committed to careers with purpose and social impact than ever. It's also worth mentioning that another contributing factor to this high volunteer rate is that this generation is sincerely committed to contributing to causes they care about. Even before they hit the workforce, Gen Z has proved to be dedicated in making a positive impact on society, even more so than millennials, who also share this trait. Nonprofits and charities can really benefit from this generation's early engagement with volunteering by building their talent network. It's a huge advantage. Next slide, please. One of the most common pieces of feedback we get from students at TalentEgg is that even in entry-level roles, employers often expect candidates to come equipped with some hands-on experience and technical skills. This generation is struggling with what we at TalentEgg call the quintessential chicken and egg problem. Students and new grads are asking, how am I supposed to get experience when no one will hire me without experience? Next slide. At TalentEgg, our answer to that is being our volunteer board, which we offer for free to nonprofits and to our student users. We're very proud to partner with our sister company, CharityVillage, to offer this to young people and to the nonprofit sector. With CP, we've developed a volunteer job board with opportunities targeted specifically at the post-secondary student and new grad skill level. Next slide, please. So if you've been tuned into the Gen Z conversation, you'll know that there's been a lot of talk about Generation Z turning corporate social responsibility into a norm for businesses. And we've certainly seen that at TalentEgg. Careers with some form of social impact are a massive attraction to these young people. Again, this is an even greater advantage to employers in the nonprofit and charitable sector for obvious reasons. This generation is especially passionate about having careers that are impactful and with purpose. And by that, I mean jobs that are socially conscious, make a positive contribution to society, something that's in the DNA of nonprofit employers. Next slide, please. So it goes without saying then that the most important thing a nonprofit organization can do is to highlight their impact on the betterment of society or causes. But remember, also incorporate the employee perspective. Let your recent hires, your 20-something superstars, tell your story from their perspective as a young employee of your organization in order to give that peer-to-peer communication to the young candidate. Next slide, please. Gen Z truly believes in careers that care. Our recently acquired sister company, Be Meaningful, like CharityVillage, aids in this need to find meaningful work. As one of their core values, Be Meaningful supports the Gen Z mindset that career success is no longer defined by how much money you make, but by how much impact you have. In our research, we found that nearly a third of Gen Z students say that they would take a 10 to 20% pay cut to work for a cause they deeply care about. So it's clear that the Gen Z commitment to providing value to society is genuine. Being able to contribute to something bigger than themselves while also growing in their careers is the ideal professional situation for a Gen Z candidate. Next slide, please. Gen Z employees want to grow with your organizations as they grow within their careers. 40% said that the most important factor in their decision to seek a job is that career growth. If you can highlight ways that they can grow their skills and experience within your organization, try to communicate that clearly and give clear examples about how they could advance with you, or perhaps cooperate with your international sister organizations or your other provincial organizations or chapters to develop rotational programs in other locations that they might take advantage of. Next slide, please. Individualize and customize your recruitment process and try to communicate how your Gen Z employee will thrive in your culture with real examples involving testimonials from recent young hires. Again, the most meaningful kind of messages and the most meaningful kind of stories come from your very own people in-house, your employee experience. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, any given member of Gen Z is no stranger to technology, and with that, obviously, constant media and advertising is constantly fed to them. When attempting to reach students on campus and online, it's important to remember that students are also expecting you to communicate on all those platforms that they're on, using the kind of media that they consume and enjoy informing themselves with. Gen Z are even more savvy than millennials in that they're experts at spotting authentic content with all of the experience they've had from the time that they were young enough to look at a screen. And they're able to tune out what isn't genuine. Our TalentEgg survey revealed that 54% of students polled believe that it's highly important for employers to have a strong social media presence and online visibility. Though given Gen Z's media savviness, the way that you do that is really key. TalentEgg specializes in producing customized content that presents the employer value proposition in the most effective way to our audience of young professionals and students and recent grads. And we typically use opportunities to be able to engage with employees of our employer clients to let them tell the story in a peer-to-peer kind of communication style. We do that through doing original free content and create editorials including these perspectives and points of view with lots of graphics and information for the young person to be able to understand in a much more meaningful way what it's like to work as a young professional within that employer's environment. Next slide, please. Of course, we also leverage our large and engaged following on social media platforms. We share employers' events, career opportunities, content on a daily basis, and we do our very best to make sure that we're using the platform and the appropriate kind of content on the platform that makes sense for that kind of content. As you probably are aware, that what works on Twitter doesn't necessarily work as well on Facebook and as well as on Instagram, for example. So we try to match up the kind of content to those platforms that's appropriate and the way that young people like to consume it. We use Snapchat or Instagram stories and shareable videos on social media to foster a meaningful kind of connection with this group and tell them the story of your authentic employee experiences. Next slide, please. So you might want to consider having your employees host an online Q&A about their jobs or post behind-the-scenes photos or videos of your staff working on special projects. On social media, engaging with stories with high-impact imagery using photos, graphics, and video are the medium of choice for this group. Long text-based communications without engaging imagery bore Gen Z, who perceive them as outdated and out of touch. And again, they have a short attention span, so you want to really engage them with highly visual sort of communication. Next slide, please. So when you're using the digital platforms to connect with students, make sure your messaging is authentic, certainly. And that's key because with public reviewing platforms like Glassdoor, your external employer branding has to reflect the real employee experience. If it doesn't, you'll be caught out quickly by this generation, who typically do their research and fact check your claims about what it's like to work with your organization. So make sure that you're consistent with what your employees will tell you their experience is and the kind of messaging that you're putting out there to recruit young people. Next slide, please. Every year, TalentEgg hosts a national Campus Recruitment Excellence Awards. where top employers from across the country submit applications that they are then judged by a panel of Canadian student judges. And the student judges obviously give their feedback, and they had a lot of feedback that really reflects their kind of commitment to wanting to see employers on social media, online, using video, Instagram, Facebook Live, using the kind of media that can tell the story in a way that is meaningful to them. Next slide, please. So really, these comments that we get back from our students, they tell us a great deal. For one, for this generation, authenticity is really the magnetic force. In a world where they're being served media messaging from everywhere, they want to see unfiltered, real content. So using Snapchat or Instagram stories and even experimenting with live video, this can really foster a meaningful connection with this group who really are dying to see the real you. But it's also important to remember that this generation expects to see you on all these platforms and engaging with them there. So if you post behind the scenes photos of your special projects or use your employees to tell the real stories of how they made an impact, this can have a really big, really be a key way of communicating and engaging this, this particular cohort. Next slide, please. So at TalentEgg, we've really been pioneering new ways that we can actually use video and those platforms to really demonstrate another way of actually allowing the young person to be able to imagine themselves within that environment. So we did a series of 14 job description videos for TJX Canada, where we featured young employees actually doing their jobs and explaining what they did day to day to help young candidates envision themselves in that role and give them a deeper understanding of the culture and the people and what kind of passions that the young employees shared with them. We can't show, because of the nature of this online sort of webinar, I'm not able to really show you these, but we do have a link, and I will provide links to you as well should you want to email me. You can see some real examples of these video job descriptions that really go beyond sort of the, I would call it sort of a corporate talking head sort of approach to video production. Feel free to reach out and I'll send you some examples. Next slide, please. The other thing that we do is whenever we actually are involved in doing video production, we also make sure that we shoot materials that can be repurposed to be shareable, short little clips that really show an engaging employee that again, sort of is used as a means of being able to cast your net among young people and then bring them back to your website that has more and richer, deeper information about your culture, your organization, your mandate for social impact, and the kind of roles that you offer there. Again, happy to share these with you. Please feel free to reach out and I'll send you links to those. Next slide, please. So although online resources can really share authentic impressions of your organizations in real time, we've also found that Gen Z shows a renewed appreciation for offline connection and a kind of media or messaging that actually reaches out to them in the places where they work and study and relax and socialize with their students on campus. Next slide, please. So over 70% of students believe that it's important, reported that they thought it was important that employers have a strong presence on campus. Now, we work with campus recruiters and they can't get to every single campus naturally. It's just impossible. So we provide some strategies for them that can reinforce their actual people on campus, but also even provide a sort of a proxy kind of messaging where we do large format murals that you can see here. We've designed them for our employer clients and help them sort of get the message out of and their employer brand and the value proposition in very visual, high impact places in high traffic areas on campus. So we produce all these in-house, both the design as well as we use a sister company to actually produce them. So we're able to offer them at a much more affordable price for employers and the HR departments, as opposed to what had been traditionally used for, which are sort of large advertising campaigns that we're focusing on 18 to 24-year-old consumers. In this case, they're really welcomed by our universities and college partners because, of course, we're not trying to sell anything to students. What we're trying to do is to try and provide them with access to opportunities. So we share the mandate of the universities and colleges of trying to help them start their careers. And so it's been very, very promising, and we're excited to be able to offer it to our employers as a new way of reaching out. Next slide, please. The other way that we help employers really enhance their presence on campus is with what is called GEOFENCED Mobile Marketing. And GEOFENCED Mobile Marketing that share job opportunities with targeted candidates. It essentially takes a specific location, typically for us, campuses, and we target a particular demographic. 18 to 24-year-olds are the usual choice. And we send out messaging about job opportunities and application deadlines for our clients to their mobile device. So either the smartphone or their tablet, that device that they never leave home without. And we can really target any geographic location in Canada, and it's very flexible, and we'll typically focus on key campuses that employers want to reach the candidates to let them know about jobs, but we also use them to let them know about career fairs or event meetups, or a special recruitment campaign that they're trying to fill a pipeline of for opportunities in co-ops, internships, and again, entry-level roles. So this is a really flexible sort of approach. We can design it to be very customized to whatever the employer is trying to target anywhere across Canada, and for however long they want to run the campaign. Next slide, please. So in addition to social media and place-based marketing, there's really an up-and-coming tool that's proving to be powerful when it comes to engaging Gen Z, and that's called campus ambassadorship. It obviously may seem obvious, but providing students with meaningful work encourages positive employer brand association. So when your organization provides a student candidate with a unique opportunity to build a professional network, participate in impactful work, and experience life as a professional, they're more likely to advocate for your employer brand. Students are more frequently turning to their peers, their career counselors, and their parents for personalized and real career guidance. For Gen Z especially, messages mean more when coming from their peers, from people they know. So campus ambassadors are a great way to give a human touch to the way that you do your recruitment. Our survey results said that having ambassadors on campus makes the employer's brand not only more accessible, but more approachable. The ambassadors can reach and meet with your prospective applicants in person and have an open and honest conversation about what their career might look like with your organization. 63% of those surveyed said that they would be very interested in participating in a student ambassador program. So really, your co-op students or your interns are ready to jump at the chance to assist you in this initiative if you choose to pursue creating one for your organization. Next slide, please. So we'd recommend personalizing your recruitment process by utilizing your interns that end up going back to campus to finish up their degrees, and encourage them to become ambassadors to attract more like-minded candidates for the roles that you have available. Your interns will know all about your good works and social impact projects and can speak meaningfully to other students about their experience working with your organization. Despite their digital expertise, Gen Z faces face-to-face sort of interactions with employers. And I'm now on another slide. My apologies to Robin. And within their work experience, they do look forward to extensive feedback from their superiors. And although they're fluent in the world of social media, text messages, and emails, Gen Z would much rather have a genuine face time with higher ups when they're within the workplace. In our experience, in order to help students and new grads at your organization really thrive and produce the best results for your organization, it's beneficial to schedule a lot of FaceTime meetings and to be able to touch base with them on a regular basis. Next slide. So knowing that their work directly impacts the organization is something this generation finds incredibly rewarding. Creating meaningful experience where employees can connect with your senior people and become directly involved in the impact your organization makes, and the people or causes you support can make all of the difference. In some ways, these tendencies really favor the smaller, leaner organizations, which, as we've discussed, typically require employees to wear many hats and offer more responsible roles earlier in a career path. And that's an advantage to smaller employers and to the not-for-profit and charitable sector, which may indeed have lower budgets than smaller employers, and therefore really need to make sure that their young people are really contribute to a team in many different ways. Next slide, please. When you can't be there in person, you could potentially create an online chat between employers and the candidates who get a chance to connect directly with you to find out more about your culture, values, and opportunities for young people. That's the kind of thing that we offer our students. We feature employers on our platform and moderate a kind of live chat for young people to be able to connect with employers. Employers love it because they're finding out, directly from students and grads what their concerns are and what they're curious about, and what they think of the employers' programs. And from the students' perspective, they get to ask any questions that they want in a safe environment, and prepare themselves for the interviews when they decide that they're actually beginning to apply for the roles that are available. Gen Z understands, we're on the next slide now. Gen Z understands that the recruitment process might take a bit more time and involve extra steps, and that there's new ways that employers are being involved using ATS systems and other kinds of software solutions that help in the process, but may be challenging from a candidate's perspective. That being said, they're getting good training, both often in their career centers at university and in colleges, and are able to get very comfortable with this because, of course, they're used to using video on their smartphones all the time and interacting with each other. So a kind of video interviewing service is something that many of these young people are really like to become involved in, because they're able to feel a more direct connection with the employer. So we at TalentEgg has actually launched a new platform to allow employers to be able to use video interviewing as part of their recruitment process. It's a great way to get some face time with candidates. It saves really valuable time and resources to allow for screening before inviting top candidates in for a personal interview. So it's a software-like platform that really allows the hiring processes to become more efficient. Since there's no need to coordinate schedules to hold an in-person interview until you've created your shortlist. And you can review their interview recordings at any time once they're stored, and you can share them with your colleagues if you want to get other perspectives on potential hires. Video interviews are really the way the recruitment industry is moving these days, and increasingly young people are very used to them, and they're very comfortable with this new technology. So it's a great way to allow you to get an immediate sense of a candidate's personality and cultural fit, and it also allows them to be able to interact with you particularly in live interviews when you're maybe not in the same city or in the same location, but you're able to connect with them in a much more personal way until you want to take that next step and bring them into the office for an interview. Next slide, please. So when recruiting members of Gen Z, it's really important to take all of these factors we've discussed into account. And we know that this generation really values feedback. So expect to be highly involved in the recruitment process. Because of Gen Z's keen eye for authenticity, it's really important to be as transparent as possible when you're recruiting them, featuring real stories of your employees making a difference in the world. This is really an advantage for nonprofit organizations, which almost always have inspiring examples of real-life heroes who make a positive change as part of their life's work. So making sure to highlight your organization's contributions to social impact and good causes, along with any kind of rotation or mentorship sort of opportunities, along with potential career growth and career paths when you're dealing with this generation, will really make you attractive as an employer to Gen Z. When you're interacting with Gen Z, it's really all about being real. So sharing real content on your social media pages, providing feedback and meaningful work experiences that help students and new grads feel like they're contributing to something much bigger than themselves and your organization is a real way to connect with them. With Gen Z's keen desire for careers with purpose, the nonprofit sector is really, in my view, poised to take the lead in attracting top young talent in Canada. And it's really about making sure that in your recruitment message, you know how to express your employer value proposition and really tell your story in a meaningful, authentic, and compelling way. And so, next slide. I'd like to thank you so much for listening, and I'm sure that you were, I appreciate your patience as well, because I wasn't able to control my slides, so I was relying on CharityVillage to be able to assist me with that. So if there was a disconnect, my apologies. I hope you found this helpful in some way. I should mention that in addition to the editorial I wrote for Vibes about connecting with Gen Z, we can also provide you with a free copy of our 2017 Campus Recruitment Guide and Gen Z Survey. If you reach out with an email to me, I'm happy to share it with you. It has, I think, some useful insights and more detailed suggestions that you might find helpful as you plan your future recruitment strategy. And now I'm very happy to open it up to any questions you might have for me now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mary. That was an amazing presentation, just jam-packed with so much info. So I do want to just remind everyone that you are getting the recording in the slide deck tomorrow. And I know a few people were asking about those video links that Mary had in the presentation, and those will be embedded in the slide deck so that you'll be able to watch those at your convenience. And Mary, that's great about the sending out the survey, because we had a lot of people asking where they could get their hands on that survey for more information. So that's great. So we'll jump right in with the Q&A. First of all, Mary, could you maybe talk about where TalentEgg is located and whether you help employers right across Canada and also internationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually are located in downtown Toronto, a small office, and we act for employers who are recruiting across Canada. So over the years, we built up our user base, of course, with a lot of very useful free content to help them stay up to date on how recruiters and employers work, what they're looking for, and how to best prepare themselves. So we've built a reputation over the last 10 years of being a very helpful resource for young people. Now, there's always new young people coming into the school, so we're constantly having to reintroduce ourselves. Right now, I'm at Western University, just gave a workshop yesterday, and I'm also attending a career fair as well. So we do a lot of outreach with campuses across Canada. Both myself, in terms of building out those relationships with career centers to help them fulfill their role in trying to find employment for young people, but also to engage with students and grads so they know about our services, and that we can do a better job of making sure that our opportunities that our employer clients have are communicated in an effective way to them. So again, we actually function all across Canada, and we do it both in terms of the kind of media that we create, which tells the employer story. So yeah, we have a presence and relationships on campus and with career centers on colleges and universities across the country.
Great. And Mary, do students have to pay for your services? Is one of the questions we've had come up.
Yeah, not at all. No, all of our services for students are for free. We actually, our clients are the people, of course, that are pay for the business, and our services. But everything that we do, so we make a huge investment in making, I guess, in both making the transition from school to work much more constructive, easier, better to manage for young people who are making that journey. But we're also providing a great deal of information to assist them in staying up to date on what employers are looking for. And so the other side of what we do is we provide from the employers with our services in trying to customize their recruitment kind of marketing to the right schools for the candidates that they're looking for with the right message, and to engage with the people that they're really looking for that's appropriate for that job that they're trying to fill.
Wonderful. And we had a question come up. What kind of app does the GeoFenced mobile marketing go out on?
It's actually a platform which I'm not a technology person, so I will do my best to explain this to you, but I found it quite fascinating. What it does is it actually will target the platform will go to basically pushes messaging through the apps and the websites that had the highest traffic by that target demographic in the weeks prior to that campaign that you're showing. So it's constantly being refreshed in terms of the algorithm. And the idea is, of course, as you know, young people's tastes change, so too does their traffic. And so it goes on the apps and the websites which have shown to have the highest traffic, and that's how they target it. And so it happens when they enter into that that particular geographic area that's geofenced. I hope I answered that question.
I think that's great, Mary. Thank you. Now, we've also had some questions from the nonprofit organizations on the call today about how they go about getting their volunteer positions up on TalentEgg.
Well, we've created sort of an internal system where we will take a feed of CharityVillage's volunteer positions, and if they're appropriate to young people, you know, they're not requiring board experience or things of that nature, they're not looking for some sort of senior role as a volunteer, then we make the decision to post them on our site. You can also reach out to us directly, and we can post them for you as well. So, you know, we're very happy to do whatever is convenient for you. We think that's really important, by the way. It isn't just, I mean, we're happy to be giving back to the nonprofit and charities that are part of your community, but in fact, we think it's super important for students and grads as well. They really do struggle to get the kind of professional experience that volunteer positions actually offer them, like working with teams, you know, being responsible to do things, showing up on time, doing all the things that you know, are part of those experiences as a volunteer that really builds important sort of life skills and professional soft skills that employers are looking for. So, and it also gives them something they can put on their CV, of course, along with references and a professional network. So we see it as really, really doing a great service to our users. And we're thrilled to be able to, you know, post your volunteer positions for you.
That leads right into the next question I was going to ask, Mary, which is we've had someone ask whether, in your experience, Gen Z is educated in some of the basic soft skills that employers would be looking for. But from what you're saying, it sounds like the volunteer experience there plays a really big factor.
It's a huge differentiator, and in fact, I work with employers all the time, so I constantly understand what our clients are, how their shifts are, and what becomes their new focus. What they're looking for now is they kind of take the position that, okay, technical skills can be trained, but really character can't, and these sort of soft skills that come with, that are developed through real life experience in things like volunteer work and those sort of early sort of professional experiences, even working part-time. Those are the things that they're trying to see evidence of when they're reviewing applications. And so we're trying to help young people understand that, and that they value these things, and they include them in their applications and in their CVs, including things like volunteering for their student association, taking leadership roles in that. What that tells about them is really about how they can step up and have those kinds of soft skills that are so key for their success within an organization. And now organizations are becoming flatter and flatter, as we've seen, as a sort of a result of the way millennials have impacted the way the workforce is now forming the workplace. And so being able to engage with other people that you're working with, work collaboratively, these are all things, and communicate, which, some highly technical programs will graduate people who are, superb at technical skills or, doing analysis, but don't necessarily provide them with opportunities to develop their communication skills. So things like volunteer work, things like what their involvement with student associations and being part of the community is really something that employers look for and they see as a valuable indicator of what they might be like if they join an organization.
Wonderful. And with the video interviewing that you mentioned towards the end of the presentation, is that something that you're seeing is being widely used today, or is it more something that we're trending towards?
You will find that the bigger organizations that really need to build a talent pipeline are using video interviewing as a screening process. So for sure, at a very minimum, they typically, especially if they're trying to go for volume, they'll use the one-way interview. So basically what that means is you send out a question as an employer, either in text on this platform, or in some instances like ours, you can actually record a question, and then they'll collect the answers on video from the applicants. And on our system, they can put in an answer in video, and then also submit their CV and their cover letter, which will be stored in the same file folder, essentially, as the video. But so these screening video interviews are very much used a lot now. And the next stage is, and not everybody has this capacity, but the next stage is the two-way interviews. And the two-way interviews are really useful, because it's at that point then when you can sort of engage in a conversation and see how well that candidate responds. And they're not as, it's obviously live, so they can't prepare as well for it, in the sense that it's not a canned answer. So you get a better sense of it right away. The other, what we really like about our platform is that it's very shareable. The platform is very robust in being able to, I can send this video interview that I've done to a colleague, and they'll get a link to it, and you enter into basically a virtual screening room, which allows you to see that video, and you can comment on it and share those comments with the other person that you might be in a team, in a recruitment team with. So there's really fantastic opportunities, especially if you're trying to hire people from across the country. It saves travel costs. It saves a lot of time before you actually decide, okay, taking the next step and being able to, arrange for an in-person interview. By the time you make that decision, it's one that has a great deal more knowledge behind it.
Wow, that's exciting, Mary. Do you see that becoming quite a standard in the next, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I actually do. And the thing that I like about our platform is that it also has the capacity to have panel interviews. So if there's a candidate that you want your team to be able to connect with, you can you can actually have a panel of people take part in a group interview with this person. And there's a recording made. It's shareable, it's stored. You can even do shortlisting using Watson, in fact, is the one that's used within our platform. And so we're trying to offer this a la carte to, for those discrete recruitment periods to our clients, when, for an organization that couldn't afford to perhaps integrate the whole thing into their software systems, we can offer it on an a la carte sort of basis for when they need it in their recruitment. And so we're very excited about where this will lead. And it's certainly the most important trend, I would say, in terms of the tools that are used for recruitment today.
Wow, that's so interesting. Just shifting gears a little bit now, is there evidence in the survey that you did with TalentEgg that points to particular industries and or sectors of interest with Gen Z?
I would say that that's a tough one, really, because I would say that one sort of unifying approach is that people are really talking about having a career with impact. So that's why you'll see a lot of for-profit companies really getting worried about their making sure that they communicate their corporate social responsibility kind of activities to this particular group of young candidates. It's really changed. It's kind of a massive change, really. That's the one common thing. And in fact, like I've literally come out of a career fair where I've been talking to students and grads, and I can't tell you how many times that they've been very interested when I talked about, also being involved in CharityVillage and having access to those kinds of those kinds of jobs that are available in not-for-profit and charitable sector, because they're keenly interested in it. And this isn't just talk. I mean, it seems to be something that really is very meaningful to them and on a deeply emotional level.
Wonderful. And maybe, Mary, you could touch a little bit on the strategies, whether the strategies that you use for recruitment in the for-profit sector are transferable to the nonprofit sector.
Well, as I was saying, I actually think that the not-for-profit sector is in a great position to be able to tell meaningful stories to this group of candidates, because with the inexpensive access to video through smartphones, the capacity to get on social media, being able to sort of tell your story that are really significant stories of many, many heroic kind of people that are in your sector, you've got the stories to tell. And that's harder for a for-profit company to come up with stuff that's like super emotionally impactful, particularly given this group's interest in having a career that has meaning and purpose. And so I actually think that the not-for-profit sector, given all the technological changes in the recruitment tools, is in a really great position to be able to exploit them to access the kind of candidates who can really make a significant impact on your organization.
Wonderful. And we have a question here from Andrea. She asks, for employers, do you cross-promote job postings between TalentEgg, CharityVillage, and Be Meaningful?
That is a wonderful question. Thank you for asking it, because it is our big move this year is to be able to integrate our services better to provide our employers and our users with better opportunities. So we will be doing cross posting across our websites, and that will be, I think, be a major advantage to the employers that are now clients of CharityVillage, because we can really target through TalentEgg the young people that you might be going after, but of course you'll still have the great access to CharityVillage to reach your more senior sort of candidates that you'd be looking for your organization. So I think combined we can be able to get a much bigger audience and be able to target better for you candidates for your roles.
It's definitely an exciting move for us at CharityVillage, that's for sure. Mary, I think we're coming up on time. I'm conscious of the fact that folks probably need to duck out of here at the 1 hour mark. So I think we're going to call it there, if that works for you.
Absolutely. It was absolutely a pleasure for me. I can't tell you how excited I am about being able to work more closely with CharityVillage and to offer some of the services to your employers. And I'm really excited about bringing not-for-profit and charitable opportunities to our young users. So again, if you want to see more examples of videos, etc., please, you have my email address on the closing slide. Please feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to you and explore whether there's ways that we can assist you in your recruitment strategy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Mary. This has been a fantastic presentation. We're so happy to have had you present for us today. And just before we sign off, I do just want to remind all of our participants today that we are going to follow up with you by email with the webinar recording. So you can watch for that tomorrow in your inbox. And we'll also include a link to a short survey there. So if you can just take a moment to fill that out for us, that's really helpful. It helps us further refine our webinar content and our delivery. It also gives you an opportunity to let us know if there's other topics you'd like to see covered in future sessions. We do have 2 more webinars coming up in our 2018 Leadership Series, and we'll send registration information for our next webinar in that email tomorrow as well, in case you'd like to continue on with some of our other Charity Village webinars. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you again for joining us today. Thank you, Mary, and I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.